Good day, everyone. I hope you're all doing great. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but this is a very important live stream that I want to do with you. And thank you for all of you coming on this day. I don't expect that many people in the live stream, but hopefully many people will share this because this topic that we'll be discussing now is an extremely important one. I'm going to explain to you in a condensed version, and this is why it's public, why the ANC had to fail and why many narratives will be played out right now that many people will fall for. They won't see through it. They will fall for these narratives, hook, line, and sinker, and you will have your freedom removed. That will be the end of the story. And you need to decide, what side of history do you want to be on? The side where you still have the freedom to make a choice with responsibility, or where you believe in the greater good ideology where you'll hand over your freedom to people that say that they are coming to save you, that they come up with all these ideas, these ideological ideas that they can only make possible really through one simple thing, and that is controlling your every move. And to control your every move, people need to know your every move. They need to know all about you. They need to know what you're thinking, what you believe. And to do that, you need technology that can be used by evil people to control your life, that of yours as well as your kids in future. And I want to play my role in exposing this to you. I want to lay it out very plain and simply. And hopefully you will share this live stream with your friends and family. I don't want it to be longer than 30 minutes because then people find it difficult to go through that period of time, but it'll be worth your while to stay here and listen. And I want you to listen to the history that I give, as well as to the solutions that many people are giving for this problem that we face now. And it's this big thing hanging in front of everyone. What are we going to do with the African National Congress? And I'm going to lay it out to you in plain and simple detail. Why they always had to fail, why they were set up to fail, and the difficult path around it. It's not going to be easy. Many people will come up with all sorts of solutions that will lead you down the garden path. These people are wolves in sheep's clothing. Some of them might know that they are, some of them might not know that they are. But when people come with solutions like we should create an alternative country in the blockchain, you need to have red flags going up and saying, whoa, how are you wanting to take control of our lives? And you will now see why the ANC had to fail to get people to this point. So I need to go back to the early 1900s when the African National Congress was formed. The ANC then was a very conservative group of people that wanted the rights for the people from Africa. They wanted very basic, simple things that any person would want. And they wanted to fight for those rights. We were literally under the influence of the crown, the British crown at that stage. And people were battling. Lots of people were upset. There's just on the outset or the finishing of the what was called the Second Boer War, which is strange because many people were involved in that war. People came from all over the world to fight the British in South Africa. All of the local tribes fought the British together with many people that came from Europe that settled here in the country. And so calling it a Boer War is quite interesting. But we are speaking now about the African National Congress. Those initial people that founded that movement had very basic, common things that they wanted, that any other person from any background, religion, or culture would want themselves. And these people, because they wanted those basic, normal needs, they were not supported the way they thought they would at all. And that whole movement ended by 1930. It just fell away completely. And the old conservative ANC that wanted basic family values, etc., was gone forever. At the same time, you would have seen a movement that started very much underground that most people couldn't see, that was funded by globalist agendas. In other words, very meticulously planned. This initial ANC that was formed was not going to play this globalist game at all. The same way that I don't want to play it, and I believe most of the people watching this live stream don't want to play a globalist game where you lose your freedom. And this doesn't mean that you can't interact with other countries, work together with other countries, etc. One should absolutely be able to do that. But I have people or entities outside of South Africa dictating to you how you should live your life, how you should do things. This is unacceptable. And the early ANC would have never allowed that. Never, ever, ever. So what happened since? There was this buildup of a new organization that started only later. And this was the new ANC. The new ANC that would be bought, where people would be handpicked, there would be funds made available to create this organization. They would one day get rid of the very same organization that was being built up at that time, the National Party or the nationalist government. And I'll explain just now why that had to take place. And a lot of people might be shocked by this, but I will tell you what I know about that time and why it will all make sense in the end. So, what had to happen, because people in this country believed that they should be independent. The local tribes believed in independence with regards to, not politically, with regards to being self-reliant. They could look after themselves, they could farm, they could herd animals, etc. They didn't need any outside intervention for survival. The Khoi in the sand could do it. The Xhosas, the Zulus, the Ndebeles, all these tribes could look after themselves. They didn't need the British to come here and tell them how to do it. Now, as I've explained in the past, the British colonization, not just of South Africa, but most of the world, was something that stemmed from the Bavarian Illuminati plan to create a one world government. And to do that, you had to make people dependent on a financial system. You had to make people dependent on large corporations as well as governments. And this Rothschild funded and implemented plan was absolutely brilliant, because the first thing they had to do is make sure that the people that migrated here, migrate is the wrong word, that settled here in South Africa, that could have come from France, Holland, Germany, various other countries. People that settled here in South Africa, a lot of them because of religious persecution and many other reasons, those people were very self-reliant. They could look after themselves. They had all the skills and ability to survive without government intervention. They didn't need government intervention whatsoever. Neither did any of the people living in the Southern African region. The people that already lived here didn't need other intervention for them to survive. They could look after themselves. They've been doing it since forever. So how do you get control of these people to one way create a one world government? And this is very simple. You need to make them dependent. And the first people that had to be made dependent was what was called the first settlers in the country, not the British settlers, the people that came before. They were already very independent. They were foolhardy. They were haragat. These people didn't want the British to come here and dictate to them. So there was a war. There were two wars where many people from around the world actually took part, and to fight away the British that wanted to dictate to them how they should live their lives, etc. Now, we all know how that turned out, and the British Crown is basically still in charge of the country today. What I need you to understand is it was the people depending on a government system, on corporations that would be created, that was important. Because the moment you could get those people dependent on a government and large corporations, then you could put this financial system in place. You could, besides pillaging all the resources of the country and sending it to other countries for them to become superpowers, what you could do is you could then control the populace. You could control how people do things. Before that, there was no control. So all you had to do is promise them things they could consume, build infrastructure that makes it possible for people to consume more, and call it progress. Um, call it something that everyone should want, and then come forward with technology. And I'm not against technology, I'm absolutely for technology, but never at the expense of people's freedom. Now, you need to think of the earlier Zulus and Xhosas, how they lived, okay? They had a lot of freedom within the areas where they occupied land at that stage. There might have been wars amongst each other, etc., amongst various tribes, but they had relative freedom to do what they want. There was no one coming here telling you you'll abide by these laws, you won't drive faster than this, you will stop at a stop street. And I'm not saying that in the society we live in right now that those things aren't necessary. That's not what we're discussing right now. What is important is that people depended on a new on a government system that didn't exist before. There was none. There might have been leaders here and there, but there was no official governance. That only started once the British started putting systems in place. There were some systems in place before in Cape Town. There were governors in place, and a lot of people didn't want that. So they moved away so that they're not under those governors or gouverneurs. They weren't interested in that. So, how do you get all these people to not be self-reliant anymore? Simple. This is very easy. You put systems in place, you promise them safety by creating chaos first, and then you control their lives. And people are born into the system like I was. I was born in 1971, and the system was a well-oiled machine at that stage, where most of the people that settled here in South Africa and weren't part of the apartheid exclusion were all dependent on government. They were so dependent on government that the majority of people in the country worked for government. They worked either for the police or the military. They worked for the railway services, the post office, for Eskom. It's endless. But most of those people actually worked for government. They were not free. They were dependent on government, and people call this progress. Now, I'm not going to debate whether that is progress or not. I'm talking today about the African National Congress, because that's the next part that I will address and show you why they had to fail. So, to break down the self-reliance that was built up even under the apartheid government, the military infrastructure and everything else, which was the biggest communist setup you could ever imagine, they needed that broken down. And now they needed the people that lived here in the Southern African region to also become reliant on government. So now you had one group of populace completely reliant on the government. And now they needed the rest. The majority of people living in the Southern African region, they needed them to become dependent on government. And they needed to decide, how would this happen? And as those of you know that have watched my Moments in Time series of videos and Question Everything series of videos, that my father literally got a tape of Pik Botha, Dennis Warrell, and Chris Yenis discussing in the late 70s the handover of the country to the African National Congress, that they were chosen already as the organization that would make all the other people dependent on government and large corporations. Now, how do you feel? Do you think they've done an excellent job at making most of the people that lived in the Southern African region that didn't settle here? Don't you think they did an excellent job at making every single person dependent on government? The majority of people, 90% of them, fully dependent on government and large corporations. Give me a thumbs up if you think that the African National Congress has done an excellent job at making the rest, the majority of the population, dependent on government. Give me a thumbs up if you think that's true. Thanks for the 370 odd people watching now. I'm really surprised that we have such a big audience today in the afternoon. But this is the crux. It was first the first group of people. I see the thumbs going up. the first group of people that needed to be fully controlled by government and corporations. But the thing is, you had the Xhosas, the Zulus, and many other tribes. We have 11 official languages. All of them were independent. They could do what they wanted. They were self-reliant. And all that had to happen now, the apartheid government wasn't going to make them dependent on themselves, except through the homeland system, where they tried to make the people dependent. But most of the rural leaders didn't fall for this nonsense. So they needed a movement in the name of freedom, liberation, all this nonsense that never happened to this very day, to get these people completely captured and make them totally dependent on the state. And it was a huge success, because almost 20 million people are currently dependent on government grants, money, fiat currency, when before they needed none of that to survive. None of it. None of it. Money didn't exist before. So you need to ask yourself how the central banking system was brought into the country, how the new governance system was brought into the country, this Westminster system, and a bastardized version of it, we can't elect our leaders directly. We couldn't do it under the apartheid government. We can't do it now. Nothing has changed. All that's happened is now the majority of people could also become dependent. And that was the role of the African National Congress. So it was people in the apartheid government then, both in the opposition as well as in the National Party, that knew that the ANC would become the future government, that they would be completely useless. And they discussed this, that they would be completely useless, except for one thing: making people dependent. That is what they'd be brilliant at. And they would get an A+ for doing that. Think about it. What is the African National Congress been brilliant at? It's making people dependent on them for fraudulent tenders, for back pay, for backhands, for anything bad and deceptive. That is what the ANC has been good at. And to get ordinary people to depend on a fiat currency handout every single month. That is what they were brilliant at. And they got an A+ in. An A+. If not 100%. So if we don't realize this, that first we had to make the first people that settled here in the country, whether it's for religious persecution or whatever, whether it's for new opportunities, make them dependent on a government and corporations. And then to make everyone else, the people in the rural area all over South Africa, dependent on a government. The ANC was the organization that was going to deliver. So that original African National Congress, that conservative movement that had family values and all these things at heart, ceased to exist. And a new organization was born out of scratch. But they still refer back to the first organization. And they have nothing to do with each other. Nothing to do with each other. And this is important to understand. So a lot of people are voting for sentiment that doesn't exist. Because these people that were handpicked to become a part of this new government, they were handpicked to destroy this country deliberately. They were never supposed to succeed. And yes, there might have been people at councillor level, at provincial level, even at national level, that had good intentions, that got into the organization. And that's why there's so many factions within the African National Congress. But they were never set up to succeed, ever. So it's impossible for the African National Congress to self-correct. The culture established within, with the patronage, with the bribes being paid, and the money is not coming from within the ANC or from within Africa. It's coming from overseas. It's coming from Europe, because the end goal is to destroy this country and then force new superheroes to walk in. Now, if you listen to what I'm saying now, you'll read between the lines. People will come and give you solutions like we will come up with new parties that will be much better than the ruling party. We'll have an opposition party that will be much better than the ruling party. But no one will talk about freedom. Nobody in government now will mention the word freedom because they want power. And freedom and power don't go well together at all. So the African National Congress is now at a point where they have served their purpose. They have destroyed the country. And they used us to do it. Because good citizens sitting back and doing nothing, in whether you're in business or whatever, you are going to start losing out now like you've never in your life before. Because you have done nothing to influence government. Because just by voting, you are not making the difference. You need to back organizations that want to change the current systems to something completely new, where we can elect our leaders directly. And the Zondo report mentions it. He said specifically that we need to be able to choose our president directly, not vote for a party, that we need to be able to vote for our MPs directly within a constituency. So you divide the country into 400 areas, and then you can hold those people accountable. At the moment, the entire parliament can come out of one town. It's madness. So our current constitution was set up to fail not only us, but the African National Congress and the people that fund them are telling them what to do. Now you have people coming to the fore to save this country. And this is important to understand. And this is probably more important than understanding that the ANC was never, ever, ever going to succeed. That it's impossible for them to succeed. That it's impossible for them to self-correct. And this is where the three things come in that I've said are vital for this new world order apologists and enablers to come to the fore. And you will beg for them to save you because you are not willing to stand up and do something. Now, many of the people on this channel are already doing things, but I'm speaking to the broader public out there. And you need to think about what I'm saying. And it might hurt. But what I'm saying is absolutely spot on. You will now have people coming to the fore saying that they will create a new country in the digital space. Not just the digital space, the blockchain, where every transaction you do will be monitored, tracked, and traced. This is the new world order being implemented, and people are are literally saying the praises and praising these people for wanting to take the last bit of freedom away, which is to just trade with a rand note wherever you want to, without cameras watching you, so that you can do a transaction if you want to. Drawing people into this blockchain country, and these individuals wanting to be the president of that new country needs to make you think. You need to also ask yourself why these people want to build smart airports, why they want to build smart cities, where everyone can be monitored, tracked, and traced in this perfect utopia, where the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals can come to fruition. If you read the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, it might sound wonderful to you. It's only about one simple thing: population control. And people that cannot see it will hopefully open their eyes and see it in future. Because you will see every single thing I'm speaking about now happening in front of your very eyes. They will happen in front of you. You don't have to believe me. It will take place. So what can you do? Because we're sitting with a government, a ruling party that is useless. They were designed to fail. And the three things in order was the Zulu Kingdom. The next thing was Eskom. And the last thing is a secession battle that needs to take place. And if you see where the leaders of the opposition have visited the coups that took place in those countries in the recent past, and what people are planning for here in Cape Town, in South Africa, in KwaZulu-Natal, and various other places, then the truth will start to come out. That the fall of the nationalists, the fall of the ANC was all planned so that you are on your knees and you will accept this new future, this utopian future where you will have zero freedom. And Klaus Schwab, as a member of the Committee of 300, has told you what that future is going to look like. Eskom will be used to implement it. The new Zulu Kingdom will be used to implement it. And the secession battle will be used to implement this. And the people fighting for it don't understand what they're dealing with because they are sitting with blinkers on, just looking at what the mainstream media is saying, what a lot of the social media is saying, and they're not thinking about the global big picture. And that is why this channel exists, is to give you that big picture so that you can do research for yourself, see what is actually going on, and you can see it through the evidence before you. 2 years ago, I laid out meticulously what will happen in the country because the plan has been laid out since the 1780s. Yes, it has matured over time, but I know exactly what the committee is planning for South Africa. And they used enablers to do all of this. The four main enablers in the country. They enabled the ANC to become what they have become, the opposition parties to become what they have become, is first the Oppenheimer family. Next, the Rupert family. Next is Becker, the owner of Naspers, Die Nasionale Pers, the national press, which is not a press anymore. They are looking after everything digital right now. And fourth, Chris de Wiese, the Pepkor group and all affiliated groups. Look at what those four people control in the country, and you will understand where we are headed. You will understand why they have invested in a CCOM cable, why they have invested in the mainstream media, why Naspers owns News 24, why we have huge companies that supply people with the cheapest food and clothing to make people dependent. And this is why I've told people, the only way for you to be secure right now in this country is for you to be self-reliant. If you are not self-reliant, you will not survive what is coming. You will have to fall in with this new world order plan. You will have to fall in with these enablers that you are praising because they are speaking out against the African National Congress. So they become superheroes overnight, when they will lead you down the garden path to your demise. And people are too stupid to see it because they won't do further investigation. You need to listen to the detail, not the criticism of the ANC. I can criticize the ANC till the chickens come home to roost. But they are negligible to me because they were never meant to do anything decent in South Africa. So why focus on them? Why not focus on the global picture where there's very specific entities that will, in this country, destroy your very freedom? They already did it under the current constitution during the COVID-19, so-called COVID-19 pandemic lockdowns. They took your freedom away without thinking twice. And I want you to understand that this is not about the ANC. It's about what is happening now. We are now at the critical point where people are going to be fooled. You are going to be fooled by people that attack the ANC. I don't have to attack the ANC. The people there were never supposed to be competent in anything. Don't blame them. They were always going to fail. You need to ask yourself, why are there business people now wanting to create blockchain countries to control every move you make, see everything you do, and then put in infrastructure that will remove your future choice, make it impossible for you to be free? And you will even go and fund those initiatives. And I want you to think long and hard about that. Welcome to the 500 people watching. Please share this video with your friends and family. I really want to thank you for coming on this day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I know it's not the easiest time, but I'm really happy, and I'm really surprised that so many people are interested in why the African National Congress were always set up to fail, why they were never, ever going to do anything good for this country. There might be individuals here and there that might try and do something good. I would advise you to leave that organization. I would advise everyone in Parliament to resign and start from scratch. People, we need a completely new system where we can elect our president, where we can elect our MPs, where we can elect our mayors, and where we can elect our councillors directly. This is important, that we rewrite our constitution. People are worried about the expropriation bill that was just passed in Parliament. Stop worrying about it. Under the current constitution, expropriation without compensation has been in there since forever. It was there during the apartheid years. I know of many people that have lost their houses because of roads being built. People that didn't want to move out. So stop worrying about distractions. And look at the people that you're praising, that you think are grand because they attacked the ANC, that want to take all your freedom away because they believe that that future world is the best for you. They are making that decision for you. And I want to warn you. Think about when you support Rob Hersoff. Think about when you support Michael Louis. Think about when you support Musi Memani. Think about when you support Herman Mashaba. Think about when you support Tuli Maronsela. And ask yourself, are they aligned with things that will take your freedom away in future? Do they believe that your freedom comes before protection of life? Because if it does not, you are in trouble. Because any threat to your life can be used to take your freedom away. And our constitution is currently set up to protect life before your freedom. It has to be changed. If we don't do this, we will not survive what is coming. So what I'm going to ask you to do at this stage to overcome what is happening to us right now, as the ANC collapses, as it was planned to happen many, many years ago, is make yourself as independent of those problems as you can, as independent of government and large corporations as you can. Because if you do not, how will you cope when you need them for a grant? How will you cope if you need them for water? How will you cope if you need them for guidance? If the electricity stops in your area, your water pumps won't work. You don't need electricity. We do not need electricity. You need 5 things to survive. Water first. Food next. Because if you have it stored, you don't need it pumped to you. Then you need shelter. Then you need energy. And then you need something to keep you sane. And people that haven't thought this through don't understand what is happening in the world right now. They are barking around down the wrong avenues. And I will openly state that anyone telling you anything else is going to lead you to your demise. If you are going to depend on electricity, then you will be led to your demise. Find alternatives. Make yourself energy independent. If you want electricity, make sure that you have your own installation, that you can be separate to Eskom or any other entity. Then you are in the best bargaining position. Make sure you have enough water supplies. Make sure that you have enough food supplies. Make sure that you have shelter, not just for where you're at, but if you have to move somewhere. Make sure that you have a 72-hour pack to go with that. And make sure that there's shelter in there. Make sure that you have energy, which means any form of energy that you can take with you. And the last thing I want you to ask you to do is to do things to keep you sane. The thing that keeps me sane is meeting other people, finding other people that feel the same way, for us to get to know each other and to strategically organize. This is important. I want to thank you for joining me in this meeting, and please share this with your friends and family. We have just over 200 likes because this is open to the public. It can be shared as far and wide as you can. But the African National Congress will fail. Don't think that any coalition in future is going to help us. It will not. The system was set up to fail anyone in this current governance system. If we do not change the constitution, if we do not change the governance system, you will just have your pothole fixed if you're lucky. You will certainly have all your freedom removed. I will be in contact with many people in the country that do not understand this properly, that are influencing people on a daily basis, either in the YouTube channels or in the mainstream media. And I will explain what I've just explained to you to them in a lot of detail. And hopefully they will get on board and understand and speak truth to power. We need more people to do so. I can't do it on my own. You can't all do it on your own. You've done an excellent job up until now. This movement is growing. We're at 44,000 subscribers now. What's more important is what people are doing on the ground, and it's really heartwarming to see that. And I want to thank everyone involved in that. I'm going to end the stream now. Thank you so much. Please like this video so that the algorithms can show it to more people. And enjoy your weekend. Just remember, Cyril has already failed. The ANC has already failed. All the other opposition parties in parliament has failed. They were never going to succeed. It was never the plan. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And remember to share love with people out there and prepare for any eventuality. Good day.